Sanbonani, Dumelang, the Macheroni, Afshen Bakahino, Molweni. We're going to start in the next 5 minutes. So I would like us to settle down. Please make sure that you've submitted your name because we're going to have a raffle later on, and there are books that need to be taken home and to be read. Okay. All right. So just make sure one of our colleagues will be making rounds to those that did not submit the names, okay, that you included in the raffle as well. Is Soshangube here? Is Soshangube here? Emalahleni, Pretoria campus, Karangua. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause as we welcome the Vice-Chancellor, the Tshwane University of Technology. Let me do that once more. Let's welcome our Vice-Chancellors, Prof Tinyiko Maluleke and Prof George Mpedi. Welcome to the Tshwane University of Technology, the leading entrepreneurship university of technology shaping the future. Right. We are entrepreneuring the future together. Those are the words that must be on your minds, on your lips, in your hearts when you think about the Tshwane University of Technology. I see Dr. Mavote looking at me and saying, yes, let them know about the new ISP 2026-2035. A big round of applause to that, please. And welcome to the VC's Book of the Month. Through the TUT VC's Book of the Month, we foster a reading culture, encourage intellectual curiosity, and the exploration of ideas. Now today, Prof Mpedi's book, From Predator to Prey, Leadership Lessons from the African Wild and Beyond, is eminently suited to foster the ideals for which the TUT's VC's Book of the Month series was established. My name is Papama, and I'm a proud spokesperson of the Tshwane University of Technology, and quite excited, really, and honored to be directing the program today. Without any waste of time, I would like now to invite Prof Tinyiko Maluleke, the Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the Tshwane University of Technology, to do the introduction of the book and its author. A big round of applause for him, please. A big round of applause as we welcome him, please.
Good morning. The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg challenged me to wear the TUT colors. And he promised to wear UJ colors. And now, but it seems to me that he's wearing TUT colors actually, red and blue. Let me start by welcoming my colleague, esteemed colleague and friend, Professor Mpedi, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, and the author of the book that we are celebrating today. Last week, we coined the notion of two VCs, a tale of two VCs and a book, and I'll come back to that. But I want to acknowledge the presence of UJ-TV, UJ-FM, and the prize-winning Tshwane FM is here. The king of all the radios in Gauteng is Tshwane FM. And TUT-FM is not very far behind. I'm not sure about UJ-FM. I won't go through the list of people who are here, including members of the executive today. I want to get on with the business that brought us here. As I was saying, last week, in order to publicize Prof Mpedi's From Predator to Prey, Leadership Lessons from the African Wild and Beyond, we decided to do yet another spoof of one of the most spoofed about books in the world, the book of Charles Dickens titled A Tale of Two Cities. Instead, we said A Tale of Two VCs. We could have said A Tale of Two Cities, Pretoria and Johannesburg. If you think our marketing strategy didn't work, you should just look at the crowd. It worked very well, Prof? But the truth is simply that we are gathered here to discuss a tale of one VC and his fantastic tales about animals. That's really why we are here. Tales about animals and the leadership lessons we can learn from them. But maybe there is something a little prophetic about our playful referencing of Dickens, Professor Mpedi. Remember Dickens's opening lines in that book of his, A Tale of Two Cities, and he said, one of the best opening lines of any book, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. Now, perhaps we too live in the best of times for a tiny minority and the worst of times for the vast majority. Ours is the age of the wisdom of a handful of the tech billionaires and the stunning foolishness and selfishness of some rulers in the world. We may be sitting smack in the middle of an epoch of the second coming, a la William Butler Yeats and Chinua Achebe. Remember that poem, The Second Coming, from which things fall apart comes. And it goes something like this, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon, there you are, cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passion and intensity. In short, in this country, on this continent, in the world, we may be going through a period where the best lack conviction and the worst are full of passion. Check the kakistocracies mushrooming all over the world. You know what a kakistocracy is? It is ruled by the least talented and the least intelligent. It is called a kakistocracy. It's Greek. They are mushrooming all over the world. Check the speed with which we are violating the natural ecosystem and putting the very sustainability of the earth at risk. Do we have a crisis of leadership and a crisis of thought, or what? Fortunately, Prof Mpedi does not fall into the category of the best who lack all conviction, which is why his book, From Predator to Prey, is such a breath of fresh air. A book so apt and so timely. In his book, he takes us back to the animal kingdom and the animal queendoms, from whence we originally came as human beings, kingdoms to which we belong. Unlike those who constantly praise humans for having risen to the top of the food chain by outfoxing and subduing, if not killing off the animals, he suggests that we have something to learn from the animals even today. He notes in his book how engineers, entomologists, biologists, innovators, and technologists have learned from the animal world to produce some of the most amazing innovations of our times. He talks about that silent aeroplane whose technology was borrowed from the way an owl flies silently at night, for example. He talks about how the shape of one particular Mercedes-Benz car is also influenced by observations of animals in the wild. In his book, Professor Mpedi outlines leadership lessons after leadership lesson from the behavior and instincts of animals. He looks at the hunting styles of various predators, the caring self-defense formations and strategies, and the memory rituals of animal herds, such as elephants, buffalo. But he contrasts all these leadership styles with those of lone rangers like leopards, who, while a lot more vulnerable, are nevertheless important in the way in which they marshal the values of solitude and adaptability in order to survive. When I was reading Professor Mpedi's chapter on solitude, I remembered that one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, the Colombian Gabriel Garcia Marquez, not only wrote his literature paradigm-shifting book, 100 Years of Solitude, but he himself has said that every other book he has written has been about solitude. And so I love that chapter on solitude as a value of leadership. Latin America had no better storyteller and interpreter of history and events than Gabriel Garcia Marquez and his focus on solitude. So, Prof, when I was watching the movie-like clips of the capture of Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela on the 3rd of January 2026, I wished Marquez was still alive to tell us the solitude implications of the saga for Venezuela, for Latin America, and for the Maduros. Did this moment plunge Latin America into a new phase of solitude and reflection? I wonder. But he's gone. He can't answer that question for us, but you are here. In this book, you demonstrate, Prof, that you are becoming perhaps the Charles Dickens and the William Butler Yeats, the Chinua Achebe, and the Gabriel Garcia Marquez of our time. From the behaviors of the animals, such as birds in relation to scarecrows, squirrels and pigeons in relation to human proximity, the Aplasia sea slug in relation to touch, Professor Mpedi teaches us the power and the wisdom of what he calls habituation in leadership. You will define that for us in a moment. And of the ferocity, the persistence and resilience of the small and furry honey badger. Professor Mpedi writes with admiration and passion. Similarly, he singles out cockroaches of all things, cockroaches as the ultimate masters of resilience, procreation, calm, and survival against all odds. He has even got a quotation that says, after all the bombs have fallen, cockroaches will still be around. And for a lesson in adaptation and endurance, Mpedi advises us to look no further than the octopus and the camel. The camel, that animal without which Africans might have never survived or overcome the Sahara. He also refers to the chameleon and its ability to adapt to circumstance and context. Again and again, Mpedi returns to the leadership lessons from animals about mentorship, future-proofing, nudging their young away from danger and mischief. Some just nudge their young a little bit, others slap them if they misbehave to prevent them from running into danger. And he says there's so much we can learn from that. And it turns out that with all our mighty communication technologies, our emails, our SMSs, our social media, our voice notes, and the works, Mpedi suggests that there is a huge lot we can still learn about communication and about listening from elephants, from dolphins, and from honeybees, and even from termites that work like an army. Somewhat controversially, Mpedi suggests that from wild cats and other animals, we can learn a lot about what he calls patrolling our territorial borders, and perhaps even our national borders. Maybe we can learn how to patrol our national borders better from the cats. He calls it mindful and active presence, as well as a way to remain grounded in the reality within the territories we occupy as leaders. These leadership traits are closely linked to watching over one another versus overwatching versus surveillance. Now, Prof, I must confess that I'm a little hurt that my dog Bruno, about which I wrote so emotionally in my book, did not make it into that beautiful chapter of yours about loyalty in the animal kingdom. But I love that chapter of yours. What an incisive chapter about the power of loyalty in leadership. Still, I am sorry that my dog was bitten by a Japanese dog into that chapter. You refer to a Japanese dog when there is an African dog here, Prof, that you could have referred to. I also loved the way in which Prof Mpedi writes about the judicious and controlled use of power in leadership. And here I must quote him in full. He refers to lions and cheetahs and leopards and hyenas, and let me quote him. He says, lions, cheetahs, leopards, hyenas, and crocodiles are some of the most dangerous animals in the wild. Yet all these predators move their young with their mouths without harming them. Despite having the ability to crush bones or overpower prey, they use their mouths to carry their young with extreme care. A lioness will gently lift her cub by the scruff of the neck, exerting just enough pressure to hold the cub securely without causing harm. Crocodiles can be seen delicately transporting their hatchlings between their teeth or in their mouths, ensuring their safety. Similarly, cheetahs and leopards often move their young to safer locations by gently grasping them in their jaws. These behaviors are more than just surviving mechanisms. They are profound demonstrations of controlled power. End of quote. For teamwork and single-mindedness in leadership, it refers to colonies of termites who have a lot to teach us. Other leadership traits and values gleaned from the animal kingdoms and queendoms include curiosity. Remember how curious cats are and monkeys are. They want to see, they want to check out what the hell is going on. He also refers to the power of play and play acting, how animals do that. He refers to how animals know when to fight, flee, freeze, or fawn. Although I guess he doesn't like fawning very much, but it can save your life. Fawning is when you become over-endearing to a person who's bigger than you, who could crush you, so you brush their hair and their head to say, please don't harm me. And he talks about how animals do that. He also encourages us to learn from the gratitude of meerkats, elephants, and bonobos. Mpedi's approach not only demonstrates diversity of leadership styles, but also advantages and disadvantages of various leadership styles. Equally important to Mpedi are the leadership lessons we learn from symbiotic relationships between and among animals, the buffalo and the oxpecker. You know how the oxpecker is always on the back of the buffalo, dealing with all the things that are eating the buffalo. So he gives the example of the buffalo and the oxpecker. The wildebeest and the zebra, who always are in close proximity so that they can warn one another about danger. And even the parasitic relationship between the flea and the dog, where only the flea benefits. The dog doesn't benefit a thing at all. Maybe that's where that song of Miriam Makeba and Harry Belafonte comes from, where the dog is being bitten by a flea, and the dog says, "Where did the naughty little flea go?" And it's rolling around looking for the flea, which is biting it. To conclude, let me say what I said of Letlhokwa George Mpedi in my own book. And this is what I said, after which I will shut up. If an alien landed near Hammanskraal at the Utsani High School in 1991, she would have been met by a bunch of noisy and untidy little looking kids, none of whom looked like a future legal eagle, let alone a future vice-chancellor. Among the pupils at Utsani High School, our visiting alien would not have missed a starry-eyed, stocky, somewhat pugnacious, karate type, and rather argumentative 16-year-old called Letlhokwa George Mpedi, the Charles Dickens of our times. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. We go back there,
I think that deserves another round of applause. I honestly don't think there'll ever be a better introduction of the book and its author. Don't you think so? Absolutely. Now, to talk about why he wrote the book, help me welcome Prof Letlhokwa George Mpedi. He's the author. No, we need another big round of applause. Yes.
Wow. Thank you very much, Madam Program Director. My brother, Vice-Chancellor, Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, executives of the entrepreneurial, did I get it right? The most entrepreneurial university of technology this side of the Mississippi River. Tshwane University of Technology. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is one of those special days in my life. I mean, what a wonderful introduction to this book. Thank you very much, Prof. I really appreciate this. I'm so emotional. I mean, this is quite special. Why did I write this book? But before I do that, there's something that many of you may not know. I mean, Prof and I come a long way, and he's a humble man, He's my mentor. Believe it or not, he's my mentor. So I learned from the best, and I continue to learn from him. In this book, I talk about the power of mentorship. And please do not take this for granted. We write this book so that we can learn from each other. And I have to start by sharing this before I talk about what I've been asked to say. And Prof, he didn't ask me to say this, but Prof, bear with me. I have to share this story. we shouldn't wait for when we are gone for people to research this, that he might have said this and people argue and academics say, no, this is not true, then their books. Let's say it now while there are cameras and people can refer to videos and all this. So when I was younger, I'm still young. When I was younger, single and sexy, and I still had hair, my wife always says, what do you mean single and sexy? You're not single anymore, yes, and sexy, what do you mean? But anyway, that is a discussion for another day. When I was a youngish researcher, I'm a lawyer by training, so I was doing research on employment equity, and I came across an article with the title, Do I, with my PhD, Need Affirmative Action? Written by one Dr. Tinyiko Maluleke. And that person happened to be a husband to one Mrs. Danisa Maluleke, who happened to be a colleague of my late older sister, Mrs. Lindiwe Doris Zulu. And when I went home, I said to my sister, please ask your colleague to ask her husband, one Dr. Maluleke, that I need this article. Guess what? The next day I had a copy of that article, autographed and with well wishes. And a few weeks later, I got an invitation to my first professorial inauguration at the University of South Africa. I didn't even know what professors did when they talked at the professorial inauguration, but I knew one day I wanted to become a professor. Prof, you don't know what that meant to me. And I had a front row seat, not front row, but front row seat. And I remember your talk, Prof, your lecture. You talked about your travels in Africa. You know, I remember when you talked about your visit in Ghana, how people, you know, would have their taxis with words such as praise God and all those, how people embrace God and so on. And I see it now. I'm a chief in Ghana. I always think of you and I see how people write those things. I always remember that day when you invited me. And guess what? When I was inaugurated as a professor at the University of Johannesburg, guess who had a front rowish seat? One Professor Tinyiko Maluleke. And we stayed in touch and we worked together. And he's still my mentor today. And please, it's not corruption now that because he gave me an article, now he invited me today. No, we work really hard and everything is on merit. So, hey, you see, I see headlines. Now it's one hand washes another. TUT's resources now are being used to launch books. It's not that. It's a worthwhile book. Now let's talk about the book before I see the headlines. So, but I had to share that and acknowledge that and the importance of mentorship. And especially to young and upcoming, leaders, academics, not only just about academia, but, students and everyone who doesn't believe in mentorship. Mentorship is extremely important. I thought you'll give our great Vice-Chancellor here a warm round of an applause. I'm who I am partly because of his support. Thank you very much, Prof, for your leadership. So why did I choose to write about this book? Firstly, I'm a lawyer by training, and I'm sure many of you are wondering why this lawyer writes about predators and so on. As a leader, of course, I mean, we are experts in what we are doing and so on. It's extremely important, to share our views, about leadership and contribute, in the space of thought leadership. This is something I learned from my predecessor. He always said to me, my brother, yes, you are an expert in your field, but the people out there would like to know your ideas, your thoughts about things that may be happening. This is not my first book in the leadership space. My previous book, published by the same publisher, Tracy McDonald Publishers, goes by the title From the Baobab to the Mosquito, and this is the second book. my predecessor always said, look, share your ideas. So I decided to follow it up, that previous book with this book. My family and I are regular visitors to the Kruger National Park. It pains me, to see those videos, with floods and so on. But animals are resilient. I have no doubt that the Kruger will bounce back, and we must support the Kruger. So people think we're crazy. I mean, on average, we visit 4 times per year, on average. And people think we're crazy. You go to the same place. I'll tell you one thing. Not every single visit is the same. Sometimes you go there and you drive around and you say, oh, last time we saw a leopard here, and then there's nothing. But I would urge people who visit the Kruger, just go there and enjoy the place, the tranquility, enjoy small and big animals, enjoy nature, birds and so on. If you go there, I'm looking for the big 5, you want to enjoy the place. Just go in there, take it easy, and enjoy nature. It's a beautiful place. So we visit the place and just enjoy it. That is the first reason. And driving around, seeing all these animals, they don't have anyone, looking after them in the true sense of the word that, oh, there's a clock, it's feeding time. They are resilient, they are smart. And I ask myself, we are smarter than them in many ways, but in some ways they are smarter than us. As leaders, there's just so much that we can learn from them. Firstly, Prof referred to a number of examples that I use in the book that, take engineers, have used, to solve real life problems. And I asked myself a question, what is it that us as leaders can learn from nature that we can use to address real life leadership challenges? Engineers, learn a lot from nature and solve real life engineering challenges. There is this concept called biomimicry, where you use nature to solve real life challenges. Prof used some of the examples that I use in the book, and I can use more. In Japan, sorry, Prof, about Bruno, but for the next book, then this means that there should be a follow-up book where I should say something about Bruno. In Japan, they've got this bullet train called the Shinkansen. I don't know if you heard about it. The first editions of that design, editions of that train, when they went through a tunnel, engineers will tell you about the so-called tunnel boom. When the train exits the tunnel, there will be this loud bang, which is called a tunnel boom. And in build-up areas, that loud bang would annoy, the residents of that place. So engineers wanted to solve that problem. Are you an engineer, sir? Oh, I thought you were an engineer because I saw you nodding. So they wanted to solve that problem. And they learned from a kingfisher, a bird, because it would take a dive into the water without splashing the water. And they designed that train, the follow-up editions of that train, or models. They've got this long beak, you must Google it. They've got this long, uglish beak, if I could call it, the Japanese will kill me. But a long beak that doesn't sort of make sense. But in reality, it makes sense because it increases the speed and it resolved that problem of that tunnel boom. Now it doesn't make that sound anymore. And they got an answer to that problem. They resolved that problem by learning from a kingfisher, which dives into the water, but without splashing water. So there are lots of such solutions. Those who are into aviation, you will see latest aeroplanes, they've got the so-called winglets at the end of their wings. They've got a tip that goes up. It helps with, fuel consumption. But it also helps, in terms of avoiding drag. Those who are in engineering, engineers learn from birds because it helps with airflow. If you look at many birds have got, when they are flying at the end, they've got their wings at the end, they are bent a little bit when they are flying. It helps with drag. So when we observe nature, we can learn a lot. And that inspired me a lot, when I looked at that. And I started, taking notes, and eventually I put up this book. Prof talked about habituation, and you look at some of these challenges we're seeing as leaders. You ignore small problems, then people get used to bad behavior. then eventually companies collapse. I used to have one of my senior colleagues when I was the Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of Johannesburg. He used to say to me, Dean, you pardon the bad, you injure the good, which is true. And some of the animals, my interest was just out of just being impressed by their resilience and some their toughness. Take a honey badger. A honey badger, it gets stung by bees, but it will run away with the prize. As leaders, how many times do we get stung? Or just as human beings. And when I talk about leadership, I'm not talking about us as vice chancellors, because every day, there's everything written about vice chancellors, and all this type of thing. But just as human beings, don't look at leadership as something of a position, that, you need to have a position. No, as a person, the fact that you are out there, you are a leader, and you can influence a lot. How often do we run into challenges? And you may say, I'm still a student today, but you're going to run into all sorts of challenges in life. So you're going to be stung and stung again and again. And should you get stung, and you will be stung in life, just look at a honey badger. A honey badger gets stung by bees, but it runs away with the prize. And what is that? Honey. A honey badger, gets bitten by the most poisonous of snakes. Scientists are still baffled by this honey badger. It would kill that snake after being bitten, and it will sleep off the poison and wake up and eats the prize. And life goes on. They say a honey badger is one of those, it has got this skin that is loose. It can turn in its own skin and bite, whatever animal is attacking it. It is one of the toughest animals. So that really excites me. When I look at it, sometimes when I go through difficult times, I'm like, damn, I'm this honey badger. I'm going to sleep off this. Tomorrow will be a better day. You need to be able to encourage yourself when it's tough. Say, look, I'm going to lie down. When I wake up, they will know me. So you need to encourage yourself, we will engage, but this watching over and overwatch. Look at the military. The military, they've got this saying of watch my 6 o'clock. How many of you have heard about watch my 6 o'clock? Sometimes they say watch my 6. Watch, 6 o'clock is your back, right? You need somebody to watch your back as a leader, somebody you trust. Baboons, when they are foraging, there would be one baboon that would sit at the top of a tree to watch over and scan for predators. If there's a threat coming, then it will make a loud noise and they will scatter and climb trees to ensure that they are safe. You need that. Meerkat, they also have that. Gratitude. Animals can show true gratitude. Lately also, we've seen animals showing true gratitude to human beings. I don't know now in the age of AI, Prof, some of these things we see on TikTok, they might be doctored. But animals do show gratitude to human beings. But us human beings, sometimes, we don't show true gratitude. Before I give you something, to support you, I fix myself and then I say, hey, are you ready? And then I give you something so that I can post for the likes. That is not true gratitude. In the book, I ask us, when we show gratitude, let's show true gratitude so that we don't lose being human beings. Now, that section in the book about, caring, crocodiles have got the strongest bite force in the animal kingdom. Hyena can bite through, metal. But it can also care. As leaders, sometimes we can destroy people, but sometimes we must be gentle. This is what that part of the book calls for. And something we see in nature. You see lions moving their young ones from one den to another. They can kill, but they can also show that they can nurture and protect life. And that is what that chapter calls for. And you can ask that sounds like a contradiction that we see in nature. And when I observe that in the Krug, I'm like, wow, this calls for us as leaders to be balanced. You can't be a leader that is always destroying. You must also be a leader that is caring. So that is what encouraged me that, look, we often go to universities up north looking for wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom around us. With these books, I aim to show that leadership wisdom is everywhere. And it's not only found overseas. We find it here in our sayings. That is what I tried to show in my book, From the Baobab to the Mosquito, where I used African proverbs to show some leadership lessons. And in this book, I'm saying there are leadership lessons to be learned from the African world and beyond. Before I sit down and engage, the point you raised, Prof, about the patrolling one's territory is something that is very close to my heart. We see it with cats. And it's something that we can learn a lot from as leaders. We must patrol our territories. And as a country, we have to patrol our borders. As leaders, we have this weakness of sitting in our air-conditioned offices. We barely walk around and see what's going on. There is a show, an American show, Undercover Boss. I don't know how many of you have seen that show, Undercover Boss, where a boss disguises and visits stores and then work with junior people and see how the staff ill-treats customers and so on. And often bosses learn new ideas from ordinary members of staff, but sometimes they also see bad things happening. So with that chapter, I encourage leaders to walk around. I walk on average 10,000 steps per day, not to catch people. No, the aim is not to catch people. It's not easy because we have lots of meetings, but on average, I try to walk 10,000 steps per day. And I see a lot of things. I interact with a lot of students, staff, and you see a lot of things because often what happens is that people will often tell you that I have been made to understand. I don't know, Prof, if you get a lot of, I have been made to understand. And then later you find out, no, that, you've been made to understand something that is no longer what it was because things happen quickly on the ground. And you also get to be seen. And you also get to be understood, and you can make sure that you engage with people and things get attended to urgently. It's not to catch people or anything of that sort. And leaders that are not visible, it's also problematic. Of course, you cannot be there all the time, like you don't trust people. It's just being present as a leader. Absent leaders that go to the office and then they sit there and then lead, remotely, have got no place in today's workplaces and so on. Because one day when you wake up, you'll find that there are no workplaces to lead anymore. People are not even coming to work. Or you say I'm leading a university. There's no longer a university to lead. So it is important to be present. It's important to engage with people. It's important to understand, the mood on the ground, get new ideas. Because some of the best ideas, you'll get them from the people on the ground who are dealing with situations. I'll give you one quick example. We're coming from outside, and at the gate, I found this parents sitting with a young man who had just registered. They had a bag and a blanket. And the way they were sitting, you could see that these poor parents, it's like they ran out of ideas. And I asked my colleague, I said, please stop. Let's engage with these parents. And they said, no, somebody told them that there's no place to stay. This faceless somebody outside of campus, these are the challenges that you have to deal with. Faceless person outside of campus, And you can imagine, of course, it was not the case, So sometimes you just have to be there, and engage with people and help the helpless and deal with people. It doesn't have to be like that. Imagine how many people who get to engage with this type of things. And of course, it's not about helping that person. It's also about making sure that there are people who can see people who are in that place, that people attend to people who may be in that place around your campus, that they get helped, if you understand what I mean. So you identify gaps, and then you make sure that those gaps are plugged and life goes on. Let me pause there. Thank you so much for your attention.
I think now you understand better why Prof Mpedi wrote the book. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving on to what we call a fireside chat, led by Prof Tinyiko Maluleke, the Vice-Chancellor and Principal, and there'll also be an audience interaction. Prof, over to you. You can move on to that. Yes, please. I have it.
I think we have to turn it on. Yeah. So, Prof, aren't you a little bit too kind to animals? I mean, animals are rough. They murder one another. They kill. I mean, Diabuya, go Kruger. But the way you are putting it is like, there's a community of gentlemen and gentle ladies there. It's rough out there. Aren't you over-humanizing them and making them look more attractive than they are?
Look, it's survival of the fittest. Most definitely, it's rough, but there's a lot to learn from that roughness. I mean, take a leopard, a solitary leopard. When it's surrounded by hyenas that would like to take its hard-won kill, it lets go. And there's no weakness in that. It's wisdom. Sometimes, when you're surrounded by hyenas, you just let go and live to fight another day, because a leopard cannot risk being injured because it doesn't have a clan that will protect and support it. It must hunt, So it's better to stay safe and live to fight another day. So it's just like us, it's a jungle out there for us. If you go and don't pick your battles, you won't last. That is the message, basically.
Survival of the fittest. Yeah, these are scary things. Charles Darwin, whom you refer to a lot, there's also something called, he didn't quite coin the survival of the fittest, but the law of natural selection, that those who adapt and who are fit will outlast the unfit and so on. But there's social Darwinism, which becomes an excuse. In other words, it was once thought that Africans are not the fittest as opposed to white people, for example, that rural communities are not fit, that they will die away, African languages will die away because they just won't survive the jungle. And once you begin to say that, then you put actions in place that say, never mind them, they are going to die out soon anyway. That's not what you mean.
Not at all. No, not at all. And we should be careful about making that assumption. I'll give you a quick example. And we're only human. Sometimes we think like that. I'll use an example from the Kruger. Many of you might have seen that story of a hyena that was attacked by lions. It is assumed it was attacked by lions. I didn't see it, but, attacked by lions, but it's assumed, and they broke its hip. It's rough there. I mean, it's nature. I mean, and it walked with its front legs. When I saw the story, I'm interested in nature. I said that that hyena won't last a day. It lasted 4 months. Actually, yes. I don't know how it's doing. And there were reports that people saw it. They said, well, that hyena is not only surviving, it's thriving. It adapted, and it was doing well. We assumed that it's rough there. It only lasts a day. But it adapted, and there are lessons to be learned. So, of course, there is this survival of the fittest, but it's also about adaptability. It's about all sorts of those things that we can explain in nature. It's also about conditioning. I know I'm not answering you.
No. We're talking.
Yes.
So, the parasitical symbiotic relationships, the flea and the dog. Some parasites do not even leave the host after the host has died. They stay there, eating away, or even turning the host into a home of sorts. Now, there are parasitic symbiotic relationships between friends. What do you do with such friends? There are also parasitic symbiotic relationships between employers and employees. And I suppose it can happen both ways. Jack Welch says, in any company, there are 20% of people who perform very well and 70% who are just trudging along, but you need them because they are holding up the sky. And then there's 10% who do very little, and they should be worked out because they are not going to help you ever. They are the parasites, as it were. So what do we do with parasitic relationships in our own personal lives, but also in the work situation?
I'm telling you, those parasites, if you are not careful, they could end up draining you and dragging you down with them. So, as a leader, you have to make a choice that you go down with them or you let go, or you let them go. That is my own position. But my view is that here we're dealing with human beings now. Let's forget about animals. We're dealing with human beings. You have to now, I put on my law cap now. There are laws to be complied with. You cannot just, let people go. You give people the support they need in terms of the law. But at some point, you have to let people go if after all the support you've provided, they don't improve and so on. Because if you don't let those people go, you end up with that situation that I've described earlier of pardoning the bad, injuring the good, because there will be a situation where those people that work hard will be expected to carry more, workload, carrying that dead wood. Then you end up losing good people, not because they don't love their work or their workplace, but because they are carrying more than they can handle. And you'll end up losing good people because of the parasites.
Let's talk about solitude very briefly.
Yeah.
So, in this very vibey world in which we live, there's social media, there's parties, bashes, and goombas going on. And then you go and be solitude. Wabora. What is the place of solitude in both in self-leadership but in leadership in general? What are the advantages of breaking out, walking away into a quiet space? But how do you do that when there is FOMO?
It's a balancing act. Solitude is not about, being this loner, weirdo. Oh, what is that word? Weirdo? Weirdo? Loner? No. There should be the time to break away from the group and reflect. And what works for me may not work for you. Even as leaders, we do have time where we break away. As the executives, we take a few days to break away from the rest of the group to reflect and plan for the year. We take 3 days. We go away to plan for the year. What is it that worked? What is it that is not working? How are we going to, approach the new year and new challenges? As individuals, we need to find times, to say, look, I need to plan. I need some quiet time where I can think, Kruger works for me because, in the Kruger, there are places where even if, I can't tell you how many times I checked my phone. It's right here. From time to time, I just, to see if there is a message or something like that. And it's not like I don't respect you or anything. It's a bad habit, that you check. But in the Kruger, even if there's nothing because there's no network, it forces you now to think. I do this a lot when I travel. Sometimes you are on a 16-hour flight. I keep a notebook. It's my solitude time. This book, if I can tell you, people may think I sat and wrote. You can't do that. But most of my scribbling, I did it in the Kruger, yes, but also while flying, because it's the only time when I can think. There are no distractions. I scribble this. I keep a notebook with me. What works for me may not work for the next person. So you need to find something that works for you. I know people who use their December holidays to go away. I know people who say, look, weekends are my, sacred times. My family, my wife and son go to church on Saturday. When they go to church on Saturday, if I don't have meetings, when they say goodbye in the morning, I go to my study. And when they come back in the afternoon, I become a husband and a father. So that is my solitude time. So you have to find something that works. But as a leader, if you say, look, I'm a solitary individual, leave me alone, then do not walk into that space.
What's the difference between micromanaging and patrolling your territory?
Hey, Prof, micromanaging is something that I've been talking a lot about it with some of my colleagues, and people use it a lot. Say, this is micromanaging, this is that. If you have somebody who's doing his or her job very well and excelling, there's no need to be looking over and saying, what are you doing? What do you do it this way? But if a person is not doing anything and all that, of course, as a leader, you have to step in and guide and lead. Patrolling your territory is being visible. For example, if I take my walk, it's all about my fitness. I'm not doing it. Sometimes I just walk by myself without talking to anybody. But if I see something that is, is not supposed to be there, I'm ready with my phone to take a picture, and then I'll send it to the wrong person. not wrong person, apologies.
And then the attitude of micromanaging.
Well, the wrong person if the right person is not available. No, it's not micromanaging. I mean, certain things, remember, take health and safety issues. I'm responsible, you are responsible. If there's something that needs to be addressed there and then, it must be addressed immediately. So if I pick something that must be addressed, then, and God bless whoever came up with cell phones, because, hey, I can call immediately, or I send a picture immediately, and then we can fix it immediately. Or I meet students and say, congratulations for being admitted at the great University of Johannesburg. Thank you, Vice-Chancellor, and say, what is it that we can fix to make your life even more exciting at the university? Oh, this, and then I'm like, why? I didn't know about that. Did you ask this person? No, I don't know, or this and that. Don't worry, we'll sort it out. Hey, I've got this nice student, contact this person. Then I've got a happy student. It's not micromanaging.
Yeah, okay. Before Papama comes to take questions from the audience, if you were to choose only one, between a honey badger, a cockroach, and an octopus, what would you like to be?
I'll be a honey badger. I like a honey. What would you be, Prof? What would you be? Between an octopus and a cockroach. I've already taken the honey badger.
No, I'll be the cockroach. I want to survive the atom bomb.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Very interesting fireside chat, don't you think? Yeah, of course. And you have an opportunity now to engage with the two professors. We've got the roving mics. There's a question. I see there's a hand already.
I have more questions.
Okay, keep them coming. Can we please be assisted with the roving mic? With the first question coming from our staff member. Please introduce yourself and then ask a question. Khaukelo, please assist with the mic.
We need a pen and paper. If you have.
Yeah, thanks. Can I go?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let me commence by congratulating you, Prof, on your literary work. My name is Tabo Chilwane, and I'm a leader. Prof, I would have loved to have a rigorous scholarly discourse with you in respect of the contents of the book, but I'm still going to read it post facto. But I'm going to limit myself to the contents of your presentation. It would appear to me, Prof, that this book is attempting to nudge the reader to make a juxtaposition between leadership in the context of animals in their natural habitat and human beings in their socially constructed environment. Now, my question is, to what extent does this dichotomy, the social construct and the natural habitat, presents a problem in respect of this book achieving its objective, where we will be able to draw parallels between the two environments which are dichotomous? Thanks.
Interesting question. We're going to take two more, and allow a prof to respond. There at the back, that was the second hand, and you are third. Okay.
No, thank you very much. My name is Philani Kazuzunduli, and I'm the current Deputy President General of the ISRC of the People's University. Yes, clap hands for me. Yes, yes. Greetings to the Vice-Chancellor, to the Prof, and also greetings to my colleagues in the ISRC whom I hear present today. I think I must be one of the people that must read this book, Prof, because I'm one person who studies the wild. I'm one person who's intrigued by the animal kingdom. And when you speak about solitude, I wonder, because there's an animal which is of interest to me, and that animal is the eagle. Because when you study the eagle, when the eagle's feathers get old, what the eagle does, it withdraws itself and goes away to the mountains and beats itself against the rocks and beats itself against the mountain, and it will be bleeding until it removes all the old feathers, all the old beak, and then new feathers grow and new beak grows, and then after some time the eagle will then come out from solitude and it will be soaring higher than it was before. It will be hunting more than it was able to hunt before. And when you study such an eagle, what can us as human beings in our social life learn from the eagle and use it towards advancing the leadership? But also, I wanted to ask about what Prof Maluleke touched on when he spoke about social dwarfism, and saying that it's a survival of the fittest, making an example of how white people colonized us and conquered us as black people. I often sit alone and ask myself, really, when you speak about the animal kingdom and survival of the fittest, maybe as Africans, because we as Africans believe in Ubuntu, we are welcoming, we welcome visitors, we are very hospitable, so is not that also a weakness towards us? Because white people did colonize us, they did conquer us, because they had more bigger guns than us, they had firepower which we did not have, and I ask myself, after so many years of oppression and colonialism, why is it that African people are still even oppressed until today? Here in South Africa, we're colonized by a population of less than 5%, which owns the majority of the land and the wealth. And us as black people, we are suffering in the slum dwellers, we are unemployed, we are security guards, we are cleaners, we are scum of the world, we are scum of this country. Yet we are majority in terms of numbers. Why is it difficult for us to unite and to fight against the white slavery and the white colonialism which is oppressing us? Sometimes I even ask myself, maybe Africans do deserve to be oppressed. Thank you very much.
We're going to take one more question. Please keep it brief.
Maybe, Papama, before it becomes too many, let him speak to the ones
okay.
Now. Yeah.
Okay, Prof will respond.
Yeah, thank you very much for the great questions. Leader Chilwani, thanks for the questions, for the question. I mean, the point that we're making is extremely important. The context is important. The environment is important. The environment within which one operates is important. It reminds me of an advert, some years ago by one of the big law firms, where they had a big male lion and put it on a terrain which had snow, and they said, power and strength, in a wrong environment, it's nothing. So the point that we are making is something that should remind us, and I want to emphasize one point, that when you read this book, you must always keep the context in mind when you take the leadership lessons, that you need to apply them in such a way that you take the environment within which you are applying this into account, so that you can learn from this. I apply these lessons, in leadership spaces. Sometimes I would give you an example. I say this will work, but be mindful of this. I would say a leopard, yes, there is power in solitude, but then you miss out on the benefits of being in a group. And these are the benefits that sometimes you'd get in those that operate in a group, so that you approach this in a balanced manner. So always keep that in mind, that as with everything in life, every advantage has got a disadvantage. The context can help, sometimes can disadvantage, the same as the environment. Thanks. The Deputy President of the People's University, Mr. Pilani, the lesson from the example that you've provided is, to me, is that in solitude, when you look at this example of solitude, is that solitude should not just be for the sake of solitude, It should be for a particular purpose. And in that case, it should be for renewal, to recharge, that when you come back stronger, or you come back with certain fruits, that you bring, If you go away, you have to come back with certain results that you can use, In this case of the eagle that you have used, of course, you come back renewed, to recharge, and then you come back a different person that is even more efficient, more powerful than before you went into that solitary space. When leaders go on a breakaway to go and recharge, they go there with questions that they want to answer. When they come back more determined, they come back more recharged, they come back with answers, ready to tackle the new year. For us, when we go on a breakaway in November, before we closed that, we had a long year as the leadership team of the University of Johannesburg. We're preparing for the new year. What are the challenges we're going to face? How are we going to deal with this? And we had those questions. We planned. We broke away from the rest, answered those. When we came back in the new year, another breakaway, we prepared. Are we ready for the new year? This is what we need to do. Then we tackled those and we went ahead. So it should not just be for the sake of. Otherwise, then you are slowly preparing for your demise. This is how I interpret it. Not you, the people's leader, but I'm saying just as a leader going into this solitary space aimlessly. I hope I've answered you. That is my take on this. And then on the question of Ubuntu, sorry, I missed your name. You are raising an important question. Yes, I mean, we have been colonized, and Ubuntu, being nice and so on. I don't think we should stop being nice people. It's like being humble. Sometimes, when you're humble, humility is confused with stupidity. And it should not be like that. It doesn't mean we should stop being humble people. But we should learn from our mistakes. Now, you talked about the issue of, I don't want to misquote you, but the way I understood you is that we're still facing serious challenges as a people. I mean, poverty, unemployment, and all those things. Now, I don't want to be controversial, but if you look at many of the challenges we're facing today, are the challenges that are self-made, and mainly by some of the people who should understand the challenges that we're facing. My biggest challenge is that we tolerate some of the things that we should not be tolerating, and from our own people that we should be holding accountable. And it should start with us holding each other accountable and not tolerating mediocrity from our own people. We should be each other's brother's keeper. I know, Prof Maluleke, if I'm out of line, he would be the first to call me and say, Prof, my younger brother, you're out of line. And I'll accept it with the spirit through which it is intended. And he holds me accountable. He's the first that I would reach out and say, Prof, I respect his judgment, and he would guide me. We are the people who know too much. We don't respect each other. Young people don't respect the elderly anymore. We steal from the poor. I wrote an opinion piece, so I know we don't have time, but I have to say this: corruption, fraud, and all those things. Today, things that we should be, things that we should be, now I'm choosing my words, but things that we should be calling people out for, are being worshipped today. People are scolded for doing right, and people are praised for doing wrong things. People are celebrated, for doing wrong things, and people are blamed for doing right things. Yeah. Those are some of the things that we should be dealing with. People are stealing their future, your future, in front of, people are stealing our future in front of our eyes, and we're allowing that. So those are the things that we need to deal with and not tolerate as a people.
I recognize the hand. And ma'am, yes, of course. Let's give him the roving mic. Let's be brief with our questions, for the sake of time.
Greetings and salutation to everyone. Without any wasting of time, Leon Lodlo. Doctor, I just have one question regarding in terms of leadership. How do you lead people you once followed? There is a problem that we face, especially as a leader, as a person. You get into a certain industry or in a certain department, you're still new there. You find people who've been there for years. They teach you the work. They teach you everything that there is to know about the work you're about to do. Then what happens when you, the very same person they taught, become their leader? And now it's really difficult for them to actually follow your lead because they've seen you in your moment of weakness. They've seen you not knowing anything about the job. Now today, you are having the privilege of actually leading them. How do you deal with those people who actually defy your leadership because of they were once your teachers? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, so much for an insightful leadership. I know leadership is an area that is, for me, I think because there's an ethos of leaders up naturally. Well, everyone is born to be a leader. Let's start from there. And then the second thing is leadership is situational. Just like the animals in the wild, the ethos of them leading depending on the situation. How do we apply those in everyday, accepting that all of us here are leaders? How do we lead and employ those lessons from the wild?
Prof, I'll take one more question and allow you to respond.
I'm here.
I'm here. Look on the right as well.
I'm here. Good morning.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, Prof. My name is Vitumelo Mthembu. I am a researcher in organizational leadership. So my question, and in leadership terms, is that who now is the predator and who now becomes the prey? And my second question is with regards to an animal that best actually represent ethical leadership. What animal does represent ethical leadership and why? Thank you.
Very good questions. Thank you so much. Prof, over to you.
Wow. The last question. Okay. Your question is difficult. I think it's about the people. You know, some people, there are people who accept somebody who rise to leadership positions in front of their eyes and respect that person easily, and some people struggle to accept, some because of jealousy and so on. And I think I would advise somebody in that position to not focus on such people, but to continue to work hard, to prove those people wrong. Not to go out there and say, I want to prove them wrong. Because sometimes people say, you'll see this person will fail or they have got doubts. Don't prove them right. Because sometimes people prove such people right by being lazy, not doing their work properly, and so on. In such cases, you have to show a great deal of maturity, and lead with dignity and the respect of such people. Sometimes it will take a long time, and people will come and say, "We doubted you, and you proved us wrong." I saw it in my career, and I don't like talking about this. There have been instances where I was the youngest in a role, and my biggest supporters, many were twice my age. Some trusted me and supported me from day one, some later. In some instances, there have been racial issues, and in some instances, it was my people who never supported me. And in the majority of instances, it was my people who had issues, who sabotaged me. But you press on, because if you focus on those issues, you will never get the job done. So I would say focus on the task at hand. Don't prove people right by not doing your job. Sometimes it helps to have one-on-one with people to say, "Look, I've noticed that, you don't seem to be excited about certain things. How can we work together? You're an important member of my team. How can I support you so that you support me? Your success is my success," and work with people. Sometimes it's natural for people to feel insecure. And as a new leader, I remember at some point in my career where I called a team together. I said, "Guys, I'm new, and it's only natural for you guys to have anxieties about this new leader. And I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to work hard so that I can earn your respect. All I need from you is to continue to do what you do best. At the end of the day, remember, it's not about us, it's about the best interest of this organization. That's all. But once you say, I'm in charge, then it's a recipe for disaster." I'll stop there. I hope I've answered you. The second one, and I'm not saying you are the type of saying pet, just the next question, how do you lead? My mother never went to school. She went to school technically because she went to an adult school up to standard 1. It was an adult school where the retired school principals, so that the ladies, at the village never went to school. She started this adult school, and she passed away. She managed to go up to standard 1. And I remember how she smiled, when she could write her own name. She used to do a cross, and when she could sign her name, the dignity of being able to do that, I'll never forget that. And then the school principal passed away, but she valued education, and there's one thing she taught me about, amongst many things. A wise lady. I always said my mother was my first leadership coach and my first law professor, despite the fact that she never went to university. She always said, "You are first a human being and a priest second." The problem starts when you are first a priest and a human being second. If we could start by being human beings, then everything will fall into place. But once we start by being, at funerals, this is a table for teachers. Of course, there must be hierarchy and respect, that these are adults. But if I'm a VC, wherever I go, VC Mpedi this, Prof Mpedi, I even forget that I'm a professor, forget about Vice-Chancellor. And that's why I hope the day when it comes that I'm no longer a Vice-Chancellor, I won't have any problems with it. I hope not. I won't have withdrawal symptoms. But, because we must get used to becoming, we must get used to being human beings, We are human beings first, because people start, So if we're human beings and we distinguish between right and wrong, after drinking this water, free water from the People's University, then I just throw this thing there. It's not leadership. I should know that I must dispose this properly. And these are the things that we need, You look at how dirty most parts of our country are. People chew a gum and then they throw it away. You ask, why are you doing this? And people tell you, I'm creating jobs. Yeah, I'm creating jobs for somebody to pick. Now, that type of job creation we don't need. We don't have time, but I hope I've answered you. Now, the last question, my goodness. Who's a predator and who's a prey? Hey, did I understand you correctly? When I wrote this book, it was the title. What I was suggesting is that this book covers everyone from a predator up to a prey. And one of my friends wrote a brief review on LinkedIn and interpreted it to mean that if you are not careful, you can start by being a predator and end up being a prey. So as leaders, you must always be on top of your game. I was like, wow, that's an interesting take. Now, your question, gives me some ideas. I didn't approach it from that point, but when I reflect, who's a predator, who's a prey, it was from a point that in this book, there are those animals that are, by their nature, predators. They've been built to become predators, like lions and so on. And there are animals that are built and have been created to become prey in their own, by creation. Like impalas are called McDonald's of the bush, because they are, they are eaten by all sorts of prey. Not from that point of view, but it doesn't mean there are no leadership lessons that could be learned. So on the last question, or which animal I would say is ethical, I would like to take this with me as my homework to reflect some more on this, because in nature we could look at these animals as let me walk away from just being ethical and all this just looks. There are people who hate hyenas. Oh, they drool and all this and all and this and that. But they have to survive, What looks terrible, how they feed, like wild dogs tearing an animal apart, Some say no, it's the most efficient way to kill. It's how nature has built it. It's such a difficult question that I think, let me take it as homework just to reflect on it. And it's one of those questions I'll always, keep at the back of my mind. And at my next book discussions, I'll say there's Vitumelo, right? Who asked me this question about which animal do I think it's ethical. There are animals that are caring. There are animals that I would say they're this, but to say this animal is ethical. There are unethical animals that I say this is definitely unethical, but to say this is ethical. Is there an animal that you think is ethical from you watching just the wild? If I may throw this back at you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's right, yeah. Oh, no. That I'll reflect about this and follow up and updates, follow-up editions. I'll work on this. But thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful interaction and engagement with the Prof Mpedi. I wish I could take more questions, right? But the book is there, and we have an opportunity now with the lucky draw for some of our audience today to win a book, right? Are you ready for that? Yeah. We're going to start with the raffle. It's a very fair process, eh? It is, because I'm going to put my hand. I did request everyone, let's settle down, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, that as you come in, you make sure that you submit your names, right? The first person to win the book is Tinswalo Mnisi. Thembinkosi Nxube. You must read these books, eh? Fortunate Lulu. There's no fortunate, then we're sending it back to the port. No, there's no fortunate. We're gonna ask for some IDs. Yeah, hey? I see. Tsepo Shongwane. All right, Tsepo is not here. Lebundlovu. Makadikwa Tupana. Where are these people? Sanele Rawano. Six more books to go. Buntle Mukwena. Tobeka Masombuka. Are you Tobeka? Oh, we passed it. We did call out your name. Shongwani. There you go. Okay. Tobeka Masombuka. Is it not Tobeka? Tendonguna. Ntebogang Nengwename. Nengwename. Ntando Nyembe. Sabi Moache. Sabi. Shepherd Khoza. Prof Ingrid Mukhobu. Is she in? But her name is here. Prof Ingrid Mukhobu? Not yet. We're putting it back to the port. Oh, she's here. Prof, congratulations. You nearly lost it, Prof. Queen Vukeya. Zitembi Kulu. And now for the last book. Can I hear a drum roll? And the lucky winner is Buipilo Chauke. Thank you very much and congratulations to all the winners. I would like now to invite for the closing remarks, Prof Ntebogang Mokgalaka. She's the Executive Dean at the Faculty of Science. A big round of applause for her, please.
Good morning. It still is morning, right? Yes. To our Vice-Chancellor and Principal, Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, Mr. on this side. Our guest of honor, the Vice-Chancellor of the great University of Johannesburg, Professor Letlhokwa Mpedi. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, students, colleagues. I think after this, I will never look at animals the same again. Yeah. But I must say that we need to do Bruno some justice, Prof. And I have two dogs, Pedro and Shadow. Maybe they can also make it. But I just want to share with you something when you mentioned the patrolling, animals being patrolling their territory. So my dog Pedro, sometimes at 3 a.m. in the morning, he will wake you up and he will demand that you go outside with him. And of course, I will be so annoyed. And then he goes out and he smells the air. He will just go out around the room smelling the air. So he is patrolling his territory. I'm not sure what that does to him, but after some while, he's satisfied. He does not go to do a pee or what. He's satisfied. He has smelled the air. Now we can go back and continue with our sleep. So, I must say that, you know, I was writing a notes, but I thought maybe I should just summarize some of the key takeaways that I took, not only from the summary of the book as our VC gave us, but also from the fireside conversation that the two VCs had about the book. The first takeaway, a lesson for me, was the power of mentorship, and how Prof Mpedi shared with us how the mentorship from Prof Tinyiko shaped him as a leader. So do not take for granted the power of mentorship. And I must say that mentorship does not begin when you are a vice-chancellor. It begins very early on when you have the ability to give back, whether it is your skill, whether it is your experience, or anything to somebody that they can use and learn from. The present and visible leadership resonated very well with me. The book emphasizes care, communal, interconnected leadership, and the moving away from the top-down control type of approach towards a more inclusive and present leadership approach. Hence, the patrolling your territory is important as a leader, to be visible, to be present, to know what is happening, you know, on the ground. So resilience and adaptability. We could draw lessons from the diverse species, such as the cockroach, that will survive even an atomic bomb, and and the octopus with its many tentacles, but always the ability for us to adapt to different environments within the deep sea. And so this book highlights the necessity of a leader to be resourceful, to be resilient, and to be to be adaptable in volatile environments. They say we live in a VUCA world, or we lead in a VUCA world. So it's always important, and as Mem has also alluded, that situational leadership is very important. You must be able to adapt to the many different challenges or situations that you come across as a leader. Ethical leadership, I think it came across very strongly, and I think also the question from our colleague Boitumelo about which animal resembles ethical leadership. And I must share with you, Leader Magedi there, for him, he says a dove for him represents an animal with ethical leadership. So perhaps Prof Letlhokwa, something for you to consider. Why a dove? What are those properties and values that the dove embodies, that shows its ethical leadership? And strategic collaborations. I think also as a leader, you can never operate in isolation. We need those strategic collaborations. So from the comments that Prof Mpedi made, that animals such as lions, they hunt in a pack because they know that alone it would not be possible, for instance, to bring down a pack of or a head of buffaloes. And so not only does strategic collaboration allow you to achieve your common goal, but it fosters teamwork and collective success. And the power of solitude also in leadership is important for rest, for renewal, for recharging. And this is important for that resilient leadership. you cannot pour. There's this saying that you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? So as leaders and leaders in all contexts, we need to be able to use that solitary moment to recharge and come back more stronger, more determined, and more effective in our leadership. So in a nutshell, really, this book should serve as a guide for rethinking leadership, for emphasizing effective, sustainable leadership. And Prof Letlhokwa shared with us, the many problems that are plaguing us right now in our own country, in our own context. It is the lack of leadership, where leadership should be there and it is not available. So for that sustainable leadership, it requires leaders who are very observant. It requires leaders who are there. It requires leaders who are engaging rather than loud and boisterous leaders. And there's nothing wrong with being, charismatic, loud, and boisterous. However, if that is coming from an empty space, we will also hear it because there will be just hot air that is coming out. So in a nutshell, I hope that, and I know that some of you might have taken much more maybe lessons from this conversation and this book. Lucky are you that have received the free copies. But some of us, we will be ready outside with our cards, Prof, to buy the book, but also to get a signed copy. Use this as a moment. It does not happen every day that you get the Vice-Chancellor of the great University of Johannesburg signing and autographing your book. So in closing, really, I would really like to thank our Vice-Chancellor, Prof Maluleke, for your visionary leadership and for your commitment to leading this leading entrepreneurial university of technology. Thank you. Yes, please. Should we do? Yes, please. Yes. Oh, okay.
Prof, thank you very much for welcoming us. I know the vote of thanks has been done. I just want to present Prof Maluleke on behalf of the great University of Johannesburg with something from UJ. Don't worry, it's not orange socks. Prof, do you want to see what's inside? Yeah. Prof? It's orange socks. Prof, thank you very much. Yeah, he will declare. I spoke too soon. When I looked, I saw a pair of orange socks. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of you for gracing us with your presence and for attending the VC's Book of the Month with Prof Letlhokwa George Mpedi. A big round of applause to the two VCs. We've now come to the end of the program. Please look out for the next coming VC's Book of the Month on all our social media pages, official pages of the Tshwane University of Technology. You can also listen to TUT-FM and Tshwane FM. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you.
All I want to say is that long after the honey badger has died and dried up, the cockroach will still be around.